Welcome to CEO Connect, brought to you by CU Solutions Group. In this month's episode, President and CEO Dave Adams discusses what can bring the economy and the nation back together.
As we turn the corner on 2020 and head into a new year, we will have taken a well-deserved pause in our work lives to spend time with family and friends at the holidays. Undoubtedly, we will have reflected on our many blessings, or hopefully so. Certainly the daunting circumstances that we lived through in 2020, and then recharged and re-energized ourselves for the year ahead. And what a year it was. As we look back, here are some highlights that marked the end of another decade. Hard to believe. First, the third impeachment trial in U.S. history, resulting in the acquittal by the U.S. Senate of President Trump early in the year. The George Floyd and Breonna Taylor murders and other examples of racially driven police brutality vaulted racial justice to the forefront and cast the Black Lives Matter movement as a significant social movement impacting professional sports, the arts, and corporate communications across the country. SpaceX launched the first ever commercial flight of astronauts to the International Space Station. The U.S. presidential election delivered a win for President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris after what seemed like a year-long election process. It always does. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled 9-0 that states can punish members of the Electoral College who break a pledge to vote for the state's popular vote winner in presidential elections. President Trump cast a long, dark shadow over the reliability of the nation's voting system after the election, challenging this in numerous courts, only to find that his own Attorney General and the courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court, failed to find any evidence of widespread voter fraud. Certainly, the COVID shut down large sectors of the economy and resulted in over 300,000 U.S. deaths. The politicizing of masks, social distancing, and COVID in general exacerbated the already fragmented approach of state governors and the U.S. government in dealing with the pandemic. President Trump and several of his cabinet members and family tested positive for the coronavirus and later recovered. That was a remarkable time in 2020. The stock market plummeted 23% in the first quarter, only to rebound to finish the year up by about 20%. The U.S. Congress approved an enormous $2 trillion stimulus package in March, followed by additional rounds later in the year. An exciting development with the COVID-19 vaccines when they won FDA approval, giving us hope for a spring 2021 return to normalcy. Sadly, Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, and the Supreme Court swung to a 6-3 conservative majority. That was a true milestone. The revelations of sexual harassment and assault by and the conviction of Harvey Weinstein brought sexual harassment challenges in the workplace to be more visible and more acute. A record high number of hurricanes and tropical storms hit the Atlantic and Gulf coasts. High-level convictions and pardons and cabinet changes associated with the Trump administration brought scrutiny to the effectiveness of the presidency. All major professional and college sports implemented creative solutions for either shortened seasons and or largely empty stadiums for sporting events, something that we had never seen before. And Americans hunkered down for the holidays, beginning with Thanksgiving and then continuing on to the Christmas and Hanukkah holidays, with CDC guidelines discouraging travel and large gatherings as incidents of COVID-19 spiked during the winter months. And finally, at year-end, Congress passed a $2.3 trillion funding bill that included $1.4 trillion for government continuity and $900 billion for COVID-related provisions, including enhanced unemployment benefits, stimulus checks, rental assistance, school funding, PPP loans, and assistance for COVID-19 related public health programs. And that's just the short snapshot. But importantly, dramatic events seem to fall into categories of racial tension, the COVID health and economic crisis, and the hyperpolitical stress due to the presidential election and the succession process. Now, accounting and advisory firm Deloitte recently published its 2021 Banking Outlook. And while the broad brush applies very differently to global banks versus small community institutions, there are many great insights that help us look to the future as credit union leaders and leaders of support organizations. Deloitte's overarching theme encouraged the strengthening of our resilience, acceleration of transformation, and the redefining of what they call the art of possible in a soon-to-be post-COVID-19 world. Of course, that's something that we're all looking forward to. Fortunately, credit unions and banks entered this latest crisis with strong balance sheets that included high levels of net worth and very low delinquency and charge-off rates. That fact, coupled with the federal government's willingness to authorize trillions of dollars of stimulus funds, and the consumer confidence that was resilient despite the pandemic, all of that contributed to a more favorable outlook for 2021 coming out of year end. But as Deloitte points out, the COVID-19 pandemic served to reshape the banking industry, including the creation of a new competitive landscape, growth in traditional products such as core deposits and mortgage loan refinance volumes, a new wave of innovation, a recasting of the role of branches, and an acceleration of the digitization trend. And while global GDP is expected to plummet in 2020 by 4.4% once the numbers are in, over $6 trillion, most experts predict a rebound in 2021. That's the good news. But even with that economic recovery, global GDP is expected to be over $9 trillion lower than what was forecast only a year ago. So both in the US and worldwide, a lot of pain lies ahead for consumers and businesses. High levels of unemployment, growing poverty and hunger, and a real need for a renewed commitment to social responsibility and mission-driven credit union service should be our top consideration. The US banking industry is expected to provision over $300 billion in loan losses for the next 2 years, or about 3.2% of total loans. However, the categories hardest hit will be credit cards, commercial real estate loans, and small business loans, leaving credit unions' consumer-focused and residential lending-focused portfolios somewhat insulated from those losses. And keeping this in perspective, this level of loan loss provisions is roughly half the 6.6% loss rate of the Great Recession between 2008 and 2010. Financial experts, politicians, business leaders, and economists had clamored for year-end stimulus legislation in a politically charged fourth quarter, and they finally got their wish at year-end with the passage of the $2.3 trillion funding bill. That bill included $900 billion for PPP loans, unemployment and stimulus checks, rental assistance, and state COVID-related public health programs, notably to help distribute the vaccines during the first half of 2021. Now, while the stimulus legislation and the rollout of vaccines should give credit union leaders great hope for the future, the higher loan loss provisions, continued compressed interest margins due to low interest rates, the sustained high unemployment rates, and volatile consumer confidence will make 2021 a choppy and challenging year at best. As credit union leaders refresh their strategic plans and budgets, I would suggest that 2021 warrants at least one reset in the first quarter. And in doing so, some of these issues should be considered. They are also highlighted in the Deloitte Insights article, and they relate to two important themes. The first theme is the acceleration of already existing megatrends. And the second theme is the need for the institutionalizing of important learnings or lessons learned from the COVID crisis. So let's take that first theme first, the acceleration of megatrends. First is the digital world, the digitization of financial services. Credit unions need to continue, obviously, to invest in new technologies that enable remote service delivery, something we've been doing. It's just in need of acceleration. Number two, virtualization of the workforce. Work from anywhere is a theme that is here to stay, and credit unions need to capitalize on the cost savings and the positive impact on staff and organizational culture. Number three, focus on safety and surveillance. For both employees and for members, safety concerns should be monitored and remedies should be implemented dealing with fraud and other security and safety issues. Number four, corporate social responsibility. As all banks and other businesses gain a heightened sense of the importance of doing good, credit unions should not lose their leadership role here. This is in the DNA of credit unions. And so financial equity and inclusion should be one of the highest priorities in this environment for all credit unions. And number five, focus on cost savings. With shrinking margins and opportunities to use digitizing technologies, thoughtful plans should be put into place to properly balance member experience and service with opportunities to streamline expenses, especially brick and mortar, and thereby providing more value to members. Now, the second theme of consideration for the strategic plan reset is the institutionalizing of our learnings from COVID. Number one, become more agile. Credit unions had to move quickly during the crisis. We didn't think we could do it, but we had to. So document what we can learn from that process and be better prepared to move with agility into the future, both to compete and to respond to future crises. Number two, develop new talent models, enable the work from anywhere talent plans, and consider other issues that will help attract and retain top talent. Creating and enhancing organizational culture should continue to be a top priority. Relatedly, number three, boost productivity, innovation, and collaboration, and find ways to measure it. In addressing important elements of a great culture, these should be the important objectives. And as I said, find ways to measure progress. Number four, document crisis management plans and update governance and reporting structure processes. Create a cross-functional team or cross-function team to document lessons learned from the crisis. Then update disaster and crisis response plans and update important governance policies and reporting guidelines. Number five, commit to financial equity and inclusion. Out of every crisis, credit unions learn more about how to expand their nets to serve those in need. With the increase in economic pain for consumers and small businesses, especially in urban areas, this will be critical. Number six, finally, improve risk management plans, including compliance and cyber risks, learning from where we were well prepared and where we were not. That process can help commit to improving risk management processes in the future using third-party solutions as necessary. While the year ahead in 2021 should bring great hope and anticipation, I know it does for me, with a heightened desire to return to more human interaction as soon as summertime or sooner than that, and with perhaps more stability in our nation's federal government, we may all look forward to a more certain environment as opposed to the theme of the day in 2020, which was uncertainty. As we look with hope to the future, we should all commit to better planning, a new age approach to leadership training and staff training, and an enhanced organizational culture and effective management of member and customer experience, as well as the investment in technology and collaborative innovation. The one constant for credit unions in tough times, or in better ones, is that they are sorely needed by American households and consumers who need help with smart financial decisions and planning to help pave a path to greater prosperity and security. Thank you for all that you do as a credit union community to fulfill that mission. I love being a part of it.